With the recent release of the movie Mufasa, we now have 5 Lion King movies, so let's rank them. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a good one today. I'm the movie ranker, and today I'm ranking all 5 Lion King movies from worst to best, including the brand new release of Mufasa, which is basically a prequel to the Lion King remake, if you will. Now, my ranking may not line up with your ranking, but that's okay. But I love to hear how you rank all these movies down in the comment section. What's your favorite? What's your least favorite? We'll have a great discussion. Also, like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy videos like this, because I put them out all the time. And without wasting any more time, let's rank them. So kicking things off in last place at number 5, this was a tough decision, basically tied between 2 films, but I had to go with The Lion King from 2019. This is basically a copy and paste version of the original Lion King movie from 1994, except this time it's done in this photorealistic style where it's almost live action, but it's not because the animals are all digital, of course. It's basically all done in CGI, but it's done really pristine, really realistic looking at times. And yeah, that was the whole thing about this movie. Look how great the animals look and everything. And it almost feels like you're watching National Geographic or something, not even a film. I mean, the story's not bad because it's the exact same story as before, but what it lacks this time is the emotion. Every time something tragic happens or there's a serious moment, you feel nothing. It just falls flat because these animals are too real looking and they can't emote the emotions that the cartoon versions could. So, like I said, like Mufasa's death just doesn't quite hit as hard as the cartoon version, and there's different multiple moments in here where it's the same thing. Same thing with the humor. The humor just doesn't quite land this time around. We got Timon and Pumbaa. Pumbaa played by Seth Rogen, which is terrible casting because when I hear his voice, all I can think of is Seth Rogen. He is no Pumbaa, so I thought that was terrible casting for the voice. Everybody else is okay. They're serviceable. I really like John Oliver as Zazu. I think he's great. And also Rafiki, John Kani or Canny. I forget how you pronounce his name, but he's great as Rafiki as well. But everybody else, take him or leave him. James Earl Jones returns for Mufasa's voice, which is great. At least we kind of have that. Because I can't see anybody else playing him. And this movie just has terrible pacing. For having the same story as before, it feels three times as long. Like, you know, it just feels like it drags. And again, it's because nothing hits. The emotions just don't hit. The humor doesn't hit. It doesn't feel epic when it's supposed to feel epic, like the final battle. Just nothing hits. Nothing lands. The songs, they're basically all the same songs again, but redone. And I prefer the original version of all these songs. The original versions, like they're basically all just redone. And we get a new Beyonce song, which completely sucked. Which, I mean, yeah, it is what it is. I'm not a big fan of that. They take Be Prepared, a really badass villain song in the original, and just completely butcher it in here. They barely even do it. It's just kind of tease you with it. And yeah, and while the songs were going on in the original, you had nice visuals to look at them because, you know, cartoon, you can do a lot with the colors and whatnot. And here, again, everything just feels so bland. Like, yeah, okay, this looks like Africa, but you lost me on everything else. Up next, at number 4, I'm going with The Lion King 1.5. Now, again, this was basically tied with my last place. They're both like 1.5 stars for me out of 5. I'm not a fan of either one of these. I gave this one the edge because at least it wasn't just a copy and paste of the original done in a different way visually. This one has an interesting concept. It's showing Timon and Pumbaa's side of the story, showing everything from their perspective. We get a little backstory on them, and then we get to see what they were doing during the first movie when we weren't with them. So it kind of runs parallel with the original film, which is a really neat idea. It's just an idea that feels overstretched, like it overstays its welcome. This should have only been an episode long, like the Timon and Pumbaa show that used to come on. This would make a great little episode, like maybe a flashback episode when they're remembering about Lion King or whatnot. Because as a full length movie, it just, like I said, it wears out pretty quickly, this idea. It's not all that interesting anymore. It's full of so much fart jokes and stuff too that it's just not very well written. The humor doesn't quite land. We still get the great voice casting from Timon and Pumbaa, Mufasa. Everybody returns. Not Mufasa, Simba, I should say. Everybody returns as the voices, like Matthew Broderick and everybody, which is great. But again, the story just wasn't good. It just wasn't compelling enough. It's one of those things that when I watched as a kid, when this came out, I was like 13 at the time. I thought it was pretty cool, pretty neat idea. It did not age well, let me tell you. Again, it was just kind of a chore to get through, and it just kind of reminds you that, hey, I could be watching a better movie right now because they're showing me pieces of it. And the songs are all completely forgettable in here as well, except for one, the one about dig a tunnel or something like that, the first song in the movie. It's bad, but it's annoyingly bad, and it gets stuck in your head. It's catchy in a bad way, like, oh, try to get the song out of your head after watching this. It takes like a week, and like I said, it's not a fun experience. So yeah, I almost called this Timon and Pumbaa. Lion King 1.5. It is what it is. Not a good movie. Coming up next at number 3, I got the brand new Mufasa, The Lion King. Definitely an improvement over Lion King 2019, over that remake. This is in the same timeline as that. This is a prequel, basically, most of it. Some of it takes place in the present, but most of the movie's told in flashbacks, so we can learn about Mufasa and Scar and all about their stories, and they give you a bunch of answers to questions no one was asking for. That's the problem with prequels. Another problem is everybody's too safe. None of them can die. They're obviously in the future film, so what really can you tell us in this story? And I think it's possible to make a compelling prequel about Mufasa, but this isn't quite it. It all boils down to being pretty generic at the end of the day, whether we're talking about the villains that are after them throughout the film, and they're kind of on the run trying to make it to, I forget what they call the place, Malala or something like that, Nalela. It's basically the Pride Lands is where they're trying to make it. And yeah, it just feels all very generic. The songs are terrible. They're either terrible or forgettable. The one villain song is very bad. It's like, there you go, bye bye, or something like that. When you go, bye bye. It's just like, oh my god, worst song out of this franchise, possibly. Even worse than the Dig the Tunnel one. And everything else, like I said, is just kind of forgettable. We get to hang out with Mufasa and Scar, but Scar goes by Taka in this because he doesn't have a scar yet. He does receive it during this film, and I thought it was going to be this big, like, epic moment, and they try to set it up like that, but again, it kind of falls flat. It's just, again, it's answering questions I didn't ask, like, where did Rafiki come from, and how did he get his stick, and how did Mufasa meet up with Sarabi? Which, yeah, that makes sense, them showing that. But it just feels like they were just trying to explain everything that we didn't know about in the original, where we don't need answers to any of these things. Like, yes, I was interested going into this to see where Scar's background came from, because why was he like the way he was in the original? And this movie does give you the answers, but they're not exactly satisfying, in my opinion. They're just like, okay, that was bare minimum of what you could have did. Serviceable, but at the end of the day, it just becomes another middle-of-the-road, forgettable entry. Up next at number 2, I got The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. Now, this was a direct-to-video Disney cheapquel back in the day, back in the 90s. They made a bunch of these. They did like Return to Jafar, and basically every major hit that they had, they made cheap sequels that didn't go to theaters, straight to video to try and make some more money. And you know what? This might be the best one. It's definitely up there. I have a soft spot for the Return of Jafar, but damn, this is a pretty good entry. It's definitely nowhere near the original, but I think this one's actually good, at least. I can't really say that about all the other entries I talked about. And the story to this one's pretty interesting. We follow Kiara, which is Simba's daughter, and she's played by Neve Campbell, which is really cool. especially around the time of Scream. She was really big at the time. And she goes out and she runs into this other lion, not part of their tribe, named Kovu, and they form a little relationship. But we learn to find out that he's part of this banished crew that were disciples of Scar. They were all there when Scar was ruling, and when they defeated Scar, they banished the rest of these lions. And they're all there. Zira is their leader. She was the head follower basically of Scar, and Scar chose Kovu to be his next up and coming, basically, the next one to rise. And you so think that Kovu is Scar's son, right? You would think that because he even kind of looks like him and everything, but no, he's not. And they mention it like 7 times in this movie just to make sure you know that is not Scar's son. I think it was all because it would have had to deal with incest, but I mean, that sort of thing kind of happens with animals, but I get why they didn't want to put that in their Disney movie. And one of those lines is Nuka, played by Andy Dick, and again, just terrible casting. I didn't mind it as a kid, but as an adult, I'm like, this is just as bad as Seth Rogen because I can't picture that voice as anything but Andy Dick. Like, so yeah, he plays an interesting character who really wants to rule, but obviously his younger brother got chosen, not him. So he's interesting, but I just wish they would have changed the voice because it's kind of annoying again. But the main story to this one is kind of like Romeo and Juliet because, like I said, Kiara and Kovu meet up. They kind of fall in love, but they have this plan where they'll send Kovu in and let him be part of the tribe, become part of the tribe, get accepted by Simba, and then he'll attack when no one's looking, and kill Simba so they can come in and take over. That's the plan. And again, it's something we've seen in movies before where they send someone in to infiltrate. And it's just as predictable as those movies where you know that Kovu is going to fall in love and not do it in the end. But it's still a fun journey watching it throughout. Like I said, there's a very Shakespearean style to this film, like Romeo and Juliet, which, he also does. They also do in the original Lion King. That's Hamlet. So it's cool that they're keeping with the Shakespeare stuff. And yeah, this is a very solid sequel. The songs are very solid in here. We got We Are One, which sounds like it's just as good. It could have been one of the hit songs on the first movie. So they did a really good job with that song. There's another one. I can never remember the name. Not One of Us. I always called it Deception Disgrace because that's how I remember it. That's how the song starts. And again, it's very catchy. And I haven't watched this movie for like 20 years. And every time one of the songs came out, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that song. But they're still in me. They're still in my memory. I still knew how they played out and everything. So definitely not a bad film if I can remember it after all these years. And another cool thing is when Simba at the first, he's like teaching Kiara different things, and you really see that resemblance between him and his father Mufasa when Simba was a kid and teaching him, and it just shows through the generations. When they're young, they're kind of immature, but they grow out of it and they understand the circle of life and everything by the end. So I think this is a great sequel. But for me, easily coming in the first place is the original, The Lion King from 1994. One of, if not the best animated movie ever made. I'm always going back and forth with this and Toy Story. Grew up with both of them. Owned them both on VHS and played the shit out of them until those tapes stopped working. I mean, everything about this movie it's perfection, taking that Hamlet style story and incorporating it into this African lifestyle with these lions and their pride and the circle of life. And this teaches kids, that animals eat other animals to survive. They don't do it out of brutality, and it teaches you a lot. Every scene means something and adds up, and it's either tragic or funny or epic, like that big finale. Oh, I always get pumped when Simba returns to take on Scar, and it's a freaking old animated Disney movie, and it still gets me pumped, and I'm a horror guy, so the movie is just that well made. The songs, every one of them are so good, brilliant. Obviously, The Circle of Life is a standout. Akuna Matata, like everybody knows that, like so damn good. And I'm telling you, from front to back, these songs are all bangers. I personally really like Be Prepared as well, Scar's song, which I was so pissed off that they barely did in the remake, and they didn't do a good job of it either. But here, it's just so damn cool with all the hyenas as like soldiers, almost like Nazis or something. Well, Scar's the bad guy, so it kind of works out. And just all like the steam going off and everything. Visually, it's just as stunning as listening to the songs, right? They really go together hand in hand, the visuals and the music. The casting is out of this world. Couldn't have picked better casting for this flick. Where do you start? Young Simba being Jonathan Taylor. Old Simba, Matthew Broderick, which was really big at the time. Just James Earl Jones as Mufasa. Everybody from Rafiki to Timon and Pumbaa, everybody was casted so damn well. The hyenas, Whoopi Goldberg and friggin' Cheech. And you get the dummy Ed, which I love. Just brilliant all across the borders. You're a friggin', I don't know what you are if you don't shed a tear every time you watch Mufasa falling to his death and then Simba having to go up and see if he's okay and realizing he's dead. That is just a gut-wrenching moment. Since I was friggin' 4 years old all the way to now, it hasn't changed. And that again is just the brilliant direction, the writing, the stunning animation for the time. You know, this was back when it was all done in pencil and that, and it looks friggin' so detailed. That's something with the cheap quill. You notice that the animation was a little bit worse. It just wasn't as fine-tuned and detailed. But this one, magnificent. The whole journey is fun, from him growing up and learning things to the tragic end of his father, to him going off and meeting Timon and Pumbaa and having a good old time, for him returning to take on Scar in the big battle at the end. It is just a brilliant film. Not much else to say. One thing I love in this movie too is Timon and Pumbaa when they get in the finale, when they have to distract the hyenas and they have to put on the hula skirt and everything. So damn funny, and that is kind of ruined again in the remake. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about this movie. Like I said, it just really toys with every emotion possible. Like, it makes you laugh, it makes you cry, it makes you angry at times, it makes you pumped to see what Simba's gonna do, and all that, like I said, is done so perfectly. And on top of that, you got Hans Zimmer's score. When we don't got the musical songs, we got this brilliant score in the background, which just all ties it all together and just really elevates the movie once again. So Lion King, what else I'm going to say aside from its first place, and it's a masterpiece. So yeah, first place in this ranking. So there you have it, guys. There's my ranking of all 5 Lion King movies. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to drop your rankings down below because I'd love to see them. I'd love to see if I line up with anybody else, especially with the new movie Mufasa, because I don't even know how people are receiving that. Do they like it? Do they hate it? I'm in the middle. It's kind of a mixed bag for me, but it could have been much worse. But it also could have been much better. But that's just my opinion, guys. You can also follow me on Letterboxd and Instagram. Links to those are always in the description of my video. Like the video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future rankings. Like I said, I try to put out 1, 2, maybe a week, so you don't want to miss it. And until next time, thanks for watching.